Every Friday for years, hundreds of thousands of people tuned in to watch a man in a black t-shirt answer their questions about their savings. The show was called Ask Mashinsky Anything. The t-shirt said, "Banks are not your friends." On Friday, June 10th, 2022, with the crypto market burning down around him, he went on the show and told his congregation that Celsius, the platform holding their money, had billions in liquidity. Billions. 60 hours later, at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, a blog post went up. Withdrawals paused. $4.7 billion, belonging to hundreds of thousands of savers, frozen behind a login screen that still worked. You could see your money. You just couldn't have it. Ever again, as it turned out, not all of it. This is the story of Celsius and of Alex Mashinsky, the preacher who told 1 million people that banks were not their friends and then ran the oldest bank trick in the book. Alex Mashinsky told his story the same way in every interview. The immigrant kid who arrived with nothing, built companies, and, he claimed, helped invent the technology that made phone calls free on the internet. Now, he said, he was going to do to banks what he'd done to phone companies. The pitch was one sentence long. Banks take your deposits, earn on them, and give you almost nothing back. So give your money to Celsius instead, and Celsius will give you almost everything. Up to 18% on some assets, paid weekly. And unlike the last two stories in this series, this wasn't a token minting itself or a spreadsheet with a hole. It was marketed as a savings account, the safe harbor. Unbank yourself. He said Celsius took less risk than a bank. He said your money was safer with him, and every Friday, live on camera, he took questions. The AMAs made him crypto's most familiar face, a folksy, combative uncle in a branded t-shirt, mocking bankers, calming nerves, always calming nerves. By late 2021, Celsius reported more than $20 billion on the platform from over 600,000 customers. Retirees moved nest eggs there. People staked their kids' college funds because 18% from a man who answers your questions every Friday feels less like a gamble than a reward for being early. And understand what the Friday show actually was, because it's the whole trick. Scammers vanish. Mashinsky showed up. Every week for years, hundreds of episodes, taking hostile questions on camera. He talked about his family. He gave away Bitcoin to viewers. He read out the total deposits like a pastor reading attendance. Consistency is what trust is made of, and he manufactured it on schedule. 52 Fridays a year. The obvious question, the one the t-shirt was designed to keep you from asking, was the same one from last episode. Who pays the 18%? Here is where the money actually went. According to federal prosecutors and the independent examiner, the bankruptcy court later sent inside. Customer deposits weren't sitting in a vault earning 18% from some magic engine. They were being deployed into risky corners of crypto lending, into loans with thin or no collateral, into bets that lost money the customers were never told about. In stretches, per the examiner, the yield being paid out wasn't coming from returns at all. It was coming from the deposits of newer customers. There's a name for that shape. The examiner used it carefully. You know it already. And then there was the token. Celsius had its own coin, CEL, and per the Department of Justice, the company spent hundreds of millions of dollars, much of it customer money, quietly buying CEL on the open market to prop up its price. The price of CEL was the scoreboard that said the church is healthy. The scoreboard was rigged. While the scoreboard glowed, the preacher was at the exit. Per his own guilty plea, Alex Mashinsky personally sold roughly $48 million of his CEL. During the same years he stood on camera, Friday after Friday, telling his congregation he was holding, that he wasn't selling, that their interests were his. Sermons on Friday, sales through the week, and a machine underneath that needed the market to never ever go down. In May 2022, the market went down. Before the freeze, read the fine print with me, because it's the whole story. Celsius's earned terms said that the moment you deposited, your crypto became Celsius's property. Legally, you hadn't put savings in a vault. You'd made an unsecured loan to a hedge fund wearing a bank costume. That's what "not your keys, not your coins" actually means. It's not a slogan, it's the contract. Keys you hold on hardware you own are property that stays yours no matter whose balance sheet burns down. Links in the description. You've seen the first domino already. In May 2022, Terra collapsed. $40 billion in a week. And every depositor in crypto asked the same question at the same time. Is my 18% actually safe? Withdrawals from Celsius accelerated through May and into June. The machine, built on a liquid bets and a propped-up token, could not give everyone their money back because, as the government would later prove, the money was not all there. On Friday, June 10th, the AMA went ahead as always. Billions in liquidity, the congregation was told. Questions about solvency were waved off as banker fear-mongering. On Sunday, June 12th, at 10 o'clock at night, the blog post went up. Due to extreme market conditions, Celsius was pausing all withdrawals, swaps, and transfers. Think about the mechanics of that sentence from the other side of the glass. 600,000 people went to bed with savings accounts and woke up with screenshots. The app still worked. The balance still displayed. The interest for a while still ticked up. On money nobody could touch. There were retirement funds in there, disability savings, college money. The court record later filled with letters from people who had believed the man in the t-shirt precisely because he wasn't a bank. Then came the month of limbo. No timeline, no numbers. Reassurances recycled from the AMAs, while behind the curtain, the company hunted for a rescue that never came. And when Celsius finally filed for Chapter 11 on July 13th, the paperwork did what the Friday shows never had. It printed the truth. A hole of roughly $1.2 billion between what Celsius owed and what it actually had. And one more discovery was waiting in the fine print, the one you heard at the mid-roll. In bankruptcy, the court confirmed that earned deposits weren't the customer's property at all. Legally, the coins belonged to the estate. 600,000 savers weren't depositors queuing for their money. They were unsecured creditors at the back of the line for their own life savings. In January 2023, the examiner's report put the machinery on the public record. The losses, the flywheel, the yield paid from inflows. The sermon stopped. The stream went dark. On July 13th, 2023, 1 year to the day after the bankruptcy filing, federal agents arrested Alex Mashinsky at his home in New York. The securities regulators sued. The commodities regulators sued. The Trade Commission sued. And in December 2024, the preacher stopped arguing. He pleaded guilty to commodities fraud for the lies about the business and to securities fraud for rigging the scoreboard, the manipulation of CEL. On May 8, 2025, the sentence came down, 12 years in federal prison and the forfeiture of $48 million. The same $48 million, near enough, as the CEL he'd sold while saying he wasn't selling. His customers got a colder arithmetic. The bankruptcy eventually paid out billions, but partially, and priced at the moment the gate slammed, in one of the worst weeks crypto has ever had. If you've watched this series in order, you already know that trap. FTX's customers fell into the same one 5 months later. Here's the shape of it. Alex Mashinsky's diagnosis was correct. That's what made him dangerous. Banks do earn on your deposits and hand you crumbs. The t-shirt wasn't wrong. His crime was building exactly what he preached against. An institution that took deposits, gambled them in the dark, paid old money with new money, and locked its doors the night the truth arrived, with none of the boring guardrails that make real banks survivable. Deposit insurance, reserves, examiners before the collapse, not after. He told them banks were not their friends. The question I keep coming back to, 18%, from a man who answers your questions every Friday. Honestly, would it have gotten you? Not 2022 you with hindsight. 2021 you. Tell me below. I read the comments, and the fine print is the takeaway. If the terms say your deposit becomes their property, it isn't a savings account, whatever the app calls it. Keys you hold are property that stays yours. Links in the description. Next week, the season closes with the biggest video game heist in history, $625 million stolen from the blockchain under a hit game, with one fake job offer and a poisoned PDF. And the thief wasn't a hacker in a basement. It was a country, Lazarus, North Korea, Subscribe so you don't miss it.